bought the land, who sold the land, who had a right to even be there. And they fought back. They continued to grow food. They did move from that spot when the Klan came and leased the area surrounding the 1,000 acres and felt that the conditions were, and so they went to Greene County, which was mostly black. So when we talk about fighting for the right to grow food, I think any one of those things, I might have been like, okay, I'm straight. But to understand the degree to which, I mean, even one organization, SWAFCA, Southwest Alabama Farmers Collective, they would, all of these problems, wouldn't sell fertilizer, wouldn't sell seeds, wouldn't do this, and so they found a way to do it anyway, grew the crop, rented trucks, couldn't afford the refrigerated trucks. So the Governor Wallace, then pulls over the trucks with the use of the state troopers, refuses them to take their produce to the processing plant, and allowed the fruit to spoil in the truck. Right? So you're talking about a real, I mean, it was like, and understand that cooperatively we are powerful. That's right. That's why these mechanisms, they had white cooperatives that were band together making millions of dollars. But as soon as black folk wanted to come together, and the Federation can speak to the 22-month investigation, they spent millions of dollars trying to find fiscal irresponsibility, held down their capacity to make money and to function. Right, so you understand that we don't always think about it, but somebody else knows there is power in cooperatives. So once again, I say to you, times are hard. We've been here before, and the only way we make it is together. So what are some of those examples? We've got the Colored Farmers Alliance of 1886. 1.2 million farmers came together, pulled their resources together. White1 Farms is a division of Tuskegee, 1914. Southern Tenant Farmers Union, STFU, 1934. Southwest Alabama Farmers Collective, you're like, wait for it. Federation is also part of this research, and Freedom Farm Cooperative. So there are about 16 different organizations. The Federation is complicated because there were so many organizations within the organization, but we're going to do this. We are going to do this. So, the book really centers on how do we take back our legacy, take back our work, take back our people, and think about our history of growing food. Can't do anything without rethinking Booker T. Come on. Now, I know some of us got a little chip on our shoulder about Booker T, but I'm demanding that we rethink our position on the Booker T question. I hear some grumbling, y'all. I hear you, and I understand. What we don't, I just want to say this. I would hate to go down in history known for three things: an argument, a school, and a speech. So think about a life's work reduced to those three things: an argument, a school, and one speech. Not even a whole speech, like a phrase, a sentence in the speech. So when we think about what Booker T really did, what he did was he said, we have money in this community. We must build our own. We must build our own schools. We can use the money in our black-only institutions, like our churches, our benevolent funds, our fraternal organizations. And so there were ways and places where there was only black money. You could not, as a black person, go to a white doctor. So we had black money in black institutions. So he said, okay, well, let's build our schools. And so what happened was that it wasn't just Tuskegee. There were several of his students went all throughout the country and built similar Tuskegees on the same frame, which is, how do you build a community around agriculture? So my question is, how can we rethink Booker T given this historic moment when we must do what? Rebuild our communities. So this question of thinking about Booker T in a particular way, looking at black institutions, using black institutions to create black communities is a critical one. Because no one is going to find your freedom. You're going to find your freedom. Not going to happen. Okay? So we've got Booker T. I'm learning to love him. Really, really kind of, So Du Bois has always talked about political mobilization. But what you don't know is his work on cooperatives. Right? Okay. He wrote an article, he wrote a piece, he did a study on Lowndes County that was so scathing that the folks who petitioned the study destroyed it. Years of work went into understanding, and the condition of black folk in Lowndes County was so awful, so atrocious, they destroyed it. The record is not found. There are some pieces of it in certain places trying to get to that. But his work on political mobilization, political organizing, and participation is another way. So for Booker T, we need to think about black institutions and community building. And how did these cooperatives, collectives, and unions, how do they function in that regard? For the work of Du Bois, how do black organizations, black farmers, black community collectives, how do we work in terms of regular political participation and mobilization? Y'all don't sleep on him. Don't sleep on him. You can do a search to identify what are the books that have been written on Dr. George Washington Carver, and you are reduced to a footnote, a mythology, and a lot of children's stories. He is the father of sustainable agriculture. So the reality of what he was doing at Tuskegee is mind-blowing given what was happening. They call him the original dumpster diver. Because he was surrounded by these rich institutions that were throwing away these Bunsen burners and these, all the little, he would go over there and say, well, look, this is still so good. So this whole recycling movement has George Washington Carver to thank because of it. Right? And when we think about this contrast between conventional agriculture, how did conventional equal contaminated? How did that happen? He was telling us what to do. He told us he had messages for farmers. He had a lot of things. So just think about rethinking, unearthing the history behind George Washington Carver. And I can't have a page without a system. So in the book, what we're doing is we're raising the work of Sister Fannie Lou to that of an intellectual. Her work was absolutely academic. And so when you talk about, quote, great thinkers, you have to be a great thinker to have done the work that she did, particularly with Freedom Farms. And so Gramsci talks about the distinction between traditional and organic intellectuals, and I'm arguing that the work of Fannie Lou Hamer was absolutely academic and activist. So these are the three ways that we resist. What does coming together allow us to do as farmers historically? Community and institution building, shared resources, community and education, and political mobilization and engagement. So in the chapter on Booker T. Washington, these black farmers, cooperatives, and collectives built schools, whole schools. We had stores, banks and credit unions, healthcare, methods and mechanisms of communication, all kinds of insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, death insurance. It goes way back to in the early 1900s. Housing cooperatives were developed when we pooled our resources together as growers. Here's an example of a cooperative school that was started. This is the Mechanics and Farmers Bank of North Carolina, the oldest African-American bank, and it's still around. Here we have a 19th century cooperatively owned pharmacy. If you need it, we can do it together. Here is a display of agricultural cooperatives products in the 1939 Florida State Fair in Tampa. And they have all kinds of like homemade cane syrup. I mean, these are value-added products, y'all. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to do this all new. Be like, I just came up with this idea. Probably our ancestors were already doing it. Right? So we just need to unearth these stories. We don't have to redo this. Here is G's Bend, a cooperative store. Here is a clinic, a health clinic for examination, right in G's Bend. I love this because this elder and this baby, and they're looking at a food chart in a cooperative clinic waiting room, 1939. We don't have to redo this, y'all. We really don't. One of my favorites, this is from, looking good. It comes from the actual newsletters that I got at the Schomburg yesterday. This is the Freedom Quilting Bee. From the Federation, of course. This is a field supervisor who's teaching children in a cooperative garden as a part of the school program, the curriculum. School warriors. Here we have adults who are engaged in physical activity. This is what cooperatives are supposed to do. This is what we're supposed to do. Looking at the beauty of and thinking about roles of gender. This is Mrs. Martha Mosley, who's coming from the store. She manages and runs her own farm and was doing cotton, a part of the G's Bend Family Cooperative. This this picture, it caught me because this is listed as the star pupil. This is an 82-year-old elder who was learning to read literacy. Cooperatives. So this is a teacher in terms of home economics in Prairie Farms, Alabama, one of the cooperatives there. Just think, I've read this somewhere, on a Facebook feed. So somebody says something, what role did destroying home economics have? Gendered. Now, they had some boys in there, I wouldn't have minded. Right? I was doing a mechanical drawing too, but what role did home economics do to destroy our diets and how we raise our children? Right? Here is the cooperative store that Fannie Lou Hamer in 1969, Fannie Lou's Freedom Farms. Now this is interesting because this is also, this is the Freedom Quilting Bee, but look at the intergenerational relationships that are here. Right? And not only are they recognizing the importance of these relationships, but also the importance of African tapestry. The images that were created were inherent in these quilts. This is history. I got this one. This is Press Power. It's from the New Communities Incorporated that Reverend and Mrs. Shirley Sherrod started in Albany, Georgia. Press Power, because whatever you need, we're going to have. You need to make sure that your messages get out for your protests or your documents or whatever you need to have done. We're going to cooperatively take care of. So this is what I mean by institution and community building. So when you go back to your homes and you think about all the wonderful things that need to be done, know that you can do a lot together. And we need to figure this out, unearth these stories. These are students in a shop class. I was gifted a brick from the original dairy and horse barn built in Tuskegee, 1918. Wow. Sits proudly on my desk at the University of Wisconsin. Just the history of it. These are, the Tuskegee. So what they taught at Tuskegee was, you need to build a house. You don't need to just grow food. You need to know how to build some bricks. These bricks are still 2013, right? Still. So we need to make sure that these things are incorporated in our education. I'm going to wrap it a little quick so we can have some question and answer. So what about George Washington Carver? What I think about George Washington Carver is he makes sure that we don't privilege education and formal educational institutions over community. So the relationship, I feel like his work reminds us, you don't have farmers come to you, you take the work to growers. Right? And so what are the ways in which these cooperatives function to share information and to cross those typical boundaries? This is one of the early farm conferences at Tuskegee. Lots of folks in that room. You all know about the Jessup Wagon, also called the movable school. But when farmers couldn't make it to Tuskegee, they took the work and the information, the studies, they took it to them. And folk got dressed up. This is Sunday best right here. This is not no roll out of bed and grab some. This was serious business here. I love this picture. These are the Tuskegee girls of 4-H. Where the slogan was, food for freedom. Y'all, I'm not making this up. 1926. I'm not making it up. I found this for real. This is a corn cooperative grill grist mill, part of G's band. This is the cooperative store. These are farmers who get their seeds. So what they did was, black farmers would pool their resources together. They say, okay, you're not going to sell to me? All of us will put our money together and say, we all need seeds. So we would find somebody who would say, I can't say no to $1,000. Right. They bought seeds together. They bought land together. They shared tools, instruments. Even the SWAFCA, Southwest Alabama Farmers Collective, they would have what they called moon farmers. So if you were a moon farmer, that meant that you agreed to do certain things by the location of the moon, which meant that we would all plant together, water together, weed together, harvest together so that we could get the maximum amount of money and the maximum harvest at the same time and take those foods. So we don't have to reinvent these things. This is the solar water heater from the Federation. Building a solar water heater. Y'all, this ain't new? Wow. These are solar panels. Now, these are elders who are sitting outside of a cooperative store. Community warehouse. The soil conservation talks, 1940. A dairy cooperative in Greensboro, Alabama. This is the Delta Cooperative Hill House planting corn on the land that fed 28 farm families. Another cooperative store at G's Bend. Here we're talking about the shared tools and also sharpening plow points at the vocational school. And another meeting of the soil conservation. So given the community and institution building, that's one thing. Given the shared resources, that's something else. But how did these black farmers, cooperatives, and collectives, how did they resist? So here's where Du Bois talks about political engagement. You have your traditional sort of cotton harvest strikes where we said, you know what, if you're not going to pay us, we're not going to pick it. We will not. So you go ahead and try to figure that out. The contribution of the Holmes County and Fayette County, where black farmers who own land allow the Freedom Riders to come down and to camp on their properties, on their plots. So this is a direct contribution to you put their land up for bail to get us out of jail when we were resisting in the civil rights movement. All sorts of voter registration drives and other forms of formal politics. And so when people understood the power of the collective, what happened? Here's a newspaper article. Vicious blacks were planning a great uprising. They were planning to strike. They were sharecroppers and tenant farmers who were demanding a right. So now you've got this is a different media, right? This is different news.